Good evening, everybody. Welcome to yet another edition. Well, this is actually not an edition of anything. This isn't the usual security talk that we have on the Wednesday nights. Instead, tonight I'm speaking to my good friend, fellow brother in arms, and political dissident of sorts, Themba Khubeka, one of the many black gun owners, legally licensed black gun owners in SA. And I think you've got quite a couple of good stories to tell, Themba. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well under the circumstances. I mean, we've got load shedding, we've got a drunken draft bill, we've got an idiot in a head whom I think I'll be one of the people to admit. I used to sing the Bring Back Begitele thing when I felt crime was getting out of control because I had seen him in action before he was minister at a lower portfolio. And I've got an egg on my face as I'm speaking to you. And I'm wearing the egg on my heart, as you can see.
Well, I was about to say I dig the shirt, sir. So, no, there was a whole bunch of us, I think, at the time when Tsele just, became Minister of Police. He really did talk the talk, and to a degree, well, not minister when he was commissioner, he talked the talk and he walked the walk. And, it was a different type of energy. And unfortunately, that hasn't worked out at all.
Yeah.
And now we're sitting with this predicament of this firearms control proposed amendment bill. But yeah. I think just to bring people up,
hasn't done any more Utah himself.
Yeah,
he was the great white hope, and he's proving every day. For me personally, I'm like, geez, why couldn't I see this earlier? As bad as a lot of things were happening with the previous administration, you kind of feel like we should have just kept the old man.
Yeah, you know what? For all his faults, Jacob Zuma never tried taking my guns. At least he certainly didn't try this hard to disarm civilians in South Africa. So from that perspective, and I think a lot of people are getting a rude awakening about the new dawn. I like how you called Cyril the Great White Hope. I think he's very much turned into the Great White Dope, which is a Bloodhound Gang song from 1999, I think, or 1998, for those of you old enough to remember and who are watching. But there's also a huge amount of misrepresentation of this issue from the very same quarters who are pushing Cyril as the saint and as our last hope in South Africa and all these other things. And the misrepresentation is the fact that gun ownership in this country is predominantly the domain of right-wing, middle to elderly white men, and that's why it's this supposedly easy target to go after. Now, I know that's not true. I know that's not a fact, but you're someone who's lived that reality as a armed black citizen, and someone who's seen this in the townships. So, Themba, tell us the story.
Look, prior to 94, I don't have to tell you the history. I don't have to tell any of the viewers that there was a lot of things that I couldn't do. I mean, I'm a bit light-skinned given the fact that my great-great-great-grandfather is Irish, but I was classified mulatto and later black to a point where, they lost their military pension when they were discovered to be not so white. So they weren't good enough anymore. Now you can imagine the native African who you've written about the War of the Gun. You've written about the Amahubi and the Basotho resistance when the old dispensation wanted to take their guns away. As you and I speak now, the Khubis are still fighting for their land. It was taken because they didn't have guns to defend it. And I always say this, I'm one person who's not ashamed that I might not like all your points. You and I disagree a lot on various things, but
Oh,
we
absolutely.
gentlemanly so. All right.
Yeah.
It's not because you're racist or because I'm backward. It's because we just don't sit on. You don't. For instance, I I'll give an example. I don't want to get too much out of what you and I are talking about. You see BEE differently from the way I see it. I see it as a good law on paper, which wasn't implemented or is even being policed very well, because it's only created a few black elites instead of what it was meant to do, or what we were told it was meant to do, which was to try and right the wrongs of the past, the inequalities and the inequities of the past. However, you and I both know now that it's far from that. It hasn't done that. So you and I can disagree. You call it, you may call it, you may choose to call it reverse racism. I would call it, I'll call the implementation something like that, because funny enough, someone who was, I was born and raised in the ANC. I've always voted the ANC. I don't know anything else but the ANC. I've looked at a lot of manifestos towards election times, and I see either nonsense or copy and paste of the manifesto and the Freedom Charter. And you see, as a person of that caliber, I was raised in a different light from what a few people might portray us to be. People, first thing they say, "Oh, communist." I'm a businessman. I can't be communist. The current ANC leadership, even the president, is a what is he, a billionaire, millionaire, whatever he is. He can't really be a communist. I don't think he wants me to own a stake of his McDonald's shares overnight. I doubt he does. And it's funny that the people in power are so capitalistic. It's difficult for me to even liken them to what I understand of Marxism or Leninism, communism. But there's a whole lot of that debate in gun groups whenever such topics come up. Oh, it's communism. The people behind these laws, the people that are funding government, are capitalists. That's why these people that's why when we say parties should show us who's funding them, the people don't want to show, because it's going to show. Communists don't even have money, so it's not going to show.
And that actually brings me to a point. You might tell me if I'm being right or wrong, but when a journalist asked me at the AfriForum event last week, so why the strong push from government into a direction that appears to be, total civilian disarmament, the usual answer would be, oh, it's communism. But in fact, the answer here is it's paranoia. You have a government that strongly believes in centralization of everything, that post-94 had some legitimacy to believing that it's under threat from external forces. But subsequently, those external forces diminished and disappeared entirely, but the belief became ingrained. Now, you're sitting 27 years down the line, it's the same old faces in the ANC. There's no young talent or young thinking. It's still this Cold War era thought process from the 70s and 80s. Exactly. It's becoming increasingly illegitimate as voter absenteeism takes part. And it's becoming paranoid because the people who are now buying and licensing guns are predominantly young black professionals, the same people who are pissed off at 27 years worth of failure and lies. I'd also be fairly paranoid because, the people who are angry at me are getting guns. that to me is that doesn't mean, look, it's a legitimate reason for what we're seeing is it's paranoia, but it doesn't mean it's any less of a problem, because it still materially affects you and I.
Here's the other side of why such a large number. You are now talking to one of the people who've lived through the violent days of the transition.
Yep.
And had been the boots on the ground, so to speak. And I can tell you now, I saw what it was like to not have a means to protect myself. I mean, when you talk of the mass shootings like Buipatong massacre, if one person had a gun and could fight, maybe we wouldn't have that many numbers. We were called clip hoyers because that's all we had. We could only hoy clip. Do you get what I'm saying? Now, if you tried that tomorrow, I'm throwing something better than a clip. You must, better believe that. I'm hoying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So on that note, there's been a great number of you guys that lived as young adults through the transition and were able to license your first guns legally. More or less, when did you get your first licensed firearm, Themba, roughly?
First legal firearm I had, what was it, 5 years ago?
So it was a recent thing for you as well.
Very recent, yeah. I mean, it's funny. I armed a lot of my friends legally. Like I coaxed them into getting their firearms as soon as we could. When the FCA came into play, like, guys, you guys need to get guns, because given the history, given the times that I had lived through, where I literally had to duck bullets just to get to school down the road, where I had been robbed at knife point or gun point in the middle of the CBD. And I was like, no, man, this is not the freedom that I wanted. This is, I want something else. I want something better. And what is it that could probably give me what could probably give me the level playing ground, and I did not want to I did not want to be walking around still carrying my old political stock firearm or but such things. I just wanted to. I'm law abiding. I mean, if they had said, if the country was in a different state and they had said, give us your guns, and there was no need for guns, and I wasn't a sports shooter or a dedicated hunter as I am now, I probably would have, but now don't think so.
And that's the thing. And from our private discussions offline that the audience isn't privy to, I mean, there are a great many legal gun owners in townships who own guns for self-defense and for other reasons, and I cannot imagine they're going to give their guns up without a fight either. I mean, this is something that they've earned, that I'd like to believe they have a strong emotional connection to, and that they see as a very practical part of their daily life. Because look, I live in an upper middle class suburb. I've got an electric fence and all sorts of fun things and neighborhood watches and stuff. I have a very different risk profile from someone that lives in Alex or in Tembisa or even in some of the slightly rougher parts of Soweto. And I know Soweto has been very much developed, but I mean, it still has its rougher parts, I'd imagine.
Nyanga in the Western Cape, the flats.
Yeah.
I don't imagine myself walking down the streets of Nyanga without the comfort of my little baby in appendix position. I would never.
No, that's exactly it. So I suppose the question we have to ask, is there a hell of a lot of grassroots in the Black community sort of awakening to legally owning firearms and standing up for their right to own firearms? Because I mean, I think I've seen some of it, but you're better positioned to tell me.
Okay. The first call I got today was from my cousin Clement. He sent, I think, 2 guys saying they need assistance in choosing firearms, getting their proficiency and competency done. And I can tell you, this year alone, I mean, it's halfway through the year, I've armed at least 10 people. You can walk into any reputable gun shop. You can go to Dave Share. They tell you, I've brought in people to buy something. You can walk into, Safari. Bruce will tell you, I've bought, I think at one point I bought like 3 firearms for 3 friends at one go. You go to Team at Tactical HQ, he'll tell you I've sold, whenever he's got that Glock 19 Gen 3 special, I've sold over 20 of those to my friend.
So you're actually their best salesman, but you're not working behind the counter.
Literally, I mean, I'm working on a couple of things with him. You see, there was this thing that I did not want to do. As you know, I'm a former EXCO member of Gun Owners SA, doing great work for the firearms community. I unfortunately have a business and a daily job that keeps me away from giving the organization as much time as I would like. So I kind of stepped back. However, as an individual, as someone who's in the security industry, as someone who's a dedicated sport shooter, as dedicated sport hunter, and Lynette is still waiting for me to come and write my my range supervision course, because I really don't have time to even breathe. I'm sure I've seen my son for less than 50 hours this year in total. Because when I wake up, he's still sleeping. When I come back, he's sleeping, getting ready for school the next day, all that. So what I've been trying to do is that to show government and to show all political parties. I mean, I'll sign any petition coming up. I don't care if it's the Freedom Front, I'll sign. If like we were saying earlier, we can disagree on certain subjects, but we can stand together on a lot of subjects. It's the politically uneducated and the politically moronous that don't understand this bit, that you and I don't have to be ANC members or supporters to be friends. So these are some of the things that I've been trying to do, to a point where I'm showing my own party that even people within the ANC at branch level, people in the last detachment of the MKMVA, the SDUs, do not agree with this, because we know the criminality we live within our communities. And we enjoy sport shooting. It's not just about Section 13. That's one thing that I've been trying to get people to move away from. I've been doing a lot of radio interviews, and everyone is fixated on Section 13. You've got Section 17. You've got a whole lot of things that we need firearms for. If I decide I want to go back to eating meat tomorrow, I want to be able to go hunt and have my fresh built on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, and those are relevant points, because the fixation has very much been on self-defense, possibly because it's a very visceral element of what's being proposed. But I mean, I know for a fact, and I'm outing you here, you signed the AfriForum petition.
Petition. I'm not afraid to speak about it. You see, here's the thing about me. I might be ANC, but even the ANC, my branch and everyone, they know that I'm a they created them. I'm sort of a monster. I'm not one of those people that go with the flock. If I believe someone is doing wrong or someone is saying something wrong, you're not gonna push me back and say no, but you cannot say this. I don't even raise my children like that. I raise my children to be able to talk to me and say, Dad, no, you're wrong here. I did not do this. I wanted to do that and that happened. This is not my fault. So we can talk, because I'm not raising subjects. I'm raising human beings who are going to be adults on their own tomorrow. And I want them to be able to be individual and independent decision-making units on their own, not to go with the flock. I don't have to go with the flock.
Yeah. And that's, I think you've also managed to inspire probably quite a few people with you in the last attachment and in other segments of ANC support base to also stand up for what they believe in. Because, I mean, we've had feedback of a whole bunch of people claiming to be MK military veterans that have participated in these processes in favor of civilian firearm ownership. And it truly cuts across cultural, age, racial, political spectrum, because I think people feel that South Africa actually has a very good gun culture, and I think it's a gun culture that was created because of all of the attempts at civilian disarmament in history. I mean, the British didn't only attempt to disarm the Boers; they went and they disarmed the Amachlubi by force. And as a result of the Amachlubi standing up for their right to keep and bear arms, they would dispossess their land. And I was not under the impression, or I did not know, that they have still to this day suffered and paid the price for refusing to essentially surrender their rifles. I mean, Reginald Oliver Pierce called the persecution of the Amachlubi a disgrace to British justice, but it's a disgrace to British justice that was never fixed. It was never addressed. It was the same with
now carried on disgrace to the Zulu nation, because a lot of that land sits under the Ingonyama Trust, and someone doesn't want to let go of their what's the buzzword? Colonial.
Oh
gains.
yes, because when it plays in your favor, it works, right? So, I mean. Yeah, and then there's the story of the War of the Gun, which is possibly one of my favorite South African stories that I only learned of a few years ago, where the Basotho actually, gave it to the Brits on the nose, and they got to keep their guns. And it's, I mean, the present people at the top of the ANC seem to be poor students of history when when you start imposing things like this. But Themba, where is this coming from? Like, this is Bheki Cele driving it. It comes from the Civilian Secretariat. Where is it coming from, and what are we going to do to stop this shit? What, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I don't think this, and I've said this before, and I've made a lot of people angry. I'm glad we're having this so that we can at least try and get people to understand this. I don't remember the Freedom Charter as well was written with a lot of white and European help. The freedom on paper that we got as Black South Africans was also thanks to a lot of sanctions from Europe. So it's more of a global thing. If you look at what the UN policies and projections say, it's there. They're trying to get everyone to be disarmed. But now, we also spoke about the communists and the capitalists. The communists behind the money that funds political parties. I mean, tomorrow the DA could be at the helm. Okay, I'm just making an example here. And you find them changing tune. I mean, you saw how quick Cyril changed tune. He spoke of Vietnam when this thing came up. All right. Now, recently he said, no, but I believe if you do something in self-defense, then it's self-defense. All of a sudden, he says, no, let the courts deal with it.
Yeah.
Where were the courts when he was in Vietnam, or where was Vietnam when he wasn't when he was thinking courts? So it's very difficult, especially in recent days, especially with the new image, because I'll also make one thing clear. I'm seeing two faces of the ANC. There's the ANC that raised me, which was a non-racial ANC, which had a lot of splinter parties that broke away from the ANC because the ANC was saying, okay, guys, we're not driving Gideon and company back to the sea.
Yeah.
We're going to sit down and have a conversation and share the spoil of this land, because we're in a very, very rich, mineral-rich continent. And then the splinter parties were like, no, we've had it. I mean, your PAC and the likes, they said, no, Gideon can't stay. You get what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
there was that ANC that raised me. That was non-racial, which had people like your Ruth First, your Joe Slovos and them, all right? Put aside that the likes of Slovo were communist, and I know a lot of the Dutch descendants don't quite like the communism part of it. However, what I'm seeing today is a regression, and maybe this we owe to the infiltration of the ANC, because even outside of the country, the ANC was infiltrated. And if you look, there's a lot of people that I look at, that I see. Some of them I know, for instance, when we talk about the tripartite alliance, and people bring up the communist, and then they bring up Blade. I don't know Blade to be communist. I know Blade to be IFP. Look it up. It's there. So from that infiltration, I cannot put it past any political organization that some people are put in there to serve a puppet master pulling the strings. And the same puppets could shift floors. I mean, politics is very funny. Could shift floors into the DA tomorrow.
This is the thing, and we've seen the sort of floor crossing. We've seen coats turned. We've seen the instability of the narrative. And I think, when you call it an infiltrated organization, David Lipman made a really good point, and he says this plot to disarm civilian populations is a worldwide phenomenon, and it is very much worldwide, and it's strong, and it has succeeded in most of the Anglosphere world. I mean, the Australians lost their guns, most of their guns, in 1997. The Canadians are equally, almost entirely disarmed. They still get to own some things, but I mean, it's very watered down. It's the same with the United Kingdom, and the New Zealanders, the Kiwis are hot on their heels. And this is the thing is, we're fond of talking about African solutions for African problems, but if you look north of our borders to a country like Zambia, for example, that has an incredibly efficient form of firearm, law administration, and we're getting a gun license. I mean, they consider it awful if you wait more than a month to get yours. It's a case of we really need a lot less, and you don't hear me saying this often, but we need a lot less Western thinking in the way that we're doing things in this country pertaining, especially things like farm legislation.
I spoke of puppets, right?
Yeah.
The puppet master is not sitting where you and I are sitting.
Yeah.
The puppet master is somewhere overseas. Even if they're sitting here, they can afford to go overseas and just forget about us because they've got money stashed away. They're not like, they don't live the everyday life that you and I live. They don't see the problems that we are faced with, all right? So there's a lot of things that will show you that a lot of the so-called solutions are copied. And it's funny that they don't even hide it. The so-called BRT system was copied from the e-toll systems were copied from Europe. So we might talk about it. The thing is, politicians, I prefer animals more than human beings, because a lion will be a lion when I wake up tomorrow morning. It won't it won't be a mouse. It won't pretend to be a mouse. Politicians are green today and red tomorrow. And that is where the problem for me lies. There was a joke and a meme going around after the Zuma era, where people were saying, maybe we should take some time off and be on autopilot and not go to elections. Maybe let's do that. Why can't we run the country like a corporation? I'm not amazed that we're failing at SOPs. We're failing at governance. So if you have people that are failing at a political level, also being deployed to run something that should be run as a corporate, it's not going to work as well.
Well, that's exactly it. And it's also a case of, the house always wins. It's a bit like gambling. We can carry on every 5 years going back to the blackjack table to try and essentially vote to lose less of our rights. But what's presently happening, and being involved with DRSA, you can see it. It's this flood of bad legislation that's proposed. And civil society, let's say there's 10 bad proposals that come through. Civil society might only be able to have the energy to fight 7. That means that 3 bad laws are passed because there just isn't the ability to resist them. And
but the next if you take another 3.
Yeah, and then the next cycle, there's another 3, and there's another 3. And after 10 years, you might have succeeded in fighting off 70 bad laws. Great, we don't have them. But you still have 30 ones that are fucking awful. And it's a case of, we talk about state proofing a lot and devolving power down and taking ownership in your own community of things you can take ownership of, so that the government essentially becomes irrelevant in your life. The issue comes that when the government doesn't like you making it irrelevant, it sends people in uniforms. No offense to the good police officers out there who still believe in the constitutional mandate of the SAPS. But when you start replacing good police officers with drones, with badges and guns and uniforms that are only there to do the political will of their masters, they will come after people like us because we're inconvenient.
I'd like to see the first one that's going to walk through my door asking for my gun. I'd really like to.
Well, they better bring friends and body bags. That's and I think this is something that we've heard this from the taxi industry. Someone earlier in the comments asked, like, where are the taxi industry? They are with us. They just don't want to make a public statement.
Yes, they are. Remember, these are people that are being looked at. I mean, when someone is failing at their work, like Beitel is doing, he's failing at giving us good policing. Also, I think to defend him a little bit, the state, by not controlling the borders, also makes a lot of things very deep. We just this nanny state after 94, that we care about human rights. But the funny part is the only human rights we care about seem to be the rights of foreigners who are here, the rights of people who are doing us wrong. The guys that would point a firearm at you and take your phone. But what about me, the law-abiding, tax-paying, general cannon fodder voting citizen of this country that's doing his best to raise children in a country where they can still call home? Exactly. we need someone to take care of us too. So
you don't have a maroon passport. You can't duck to the UK or to wherever else if shit goes down.
Dude, I'm actually researching how I'm at a desperate level of researching how much I can claim my Irish ancestral visa, and if that works, I'm out.
Please let me know how that goes, because I'm keeping fingers crossed for you. But it's also a case of, I think things are going downhill faster than you and I can manage or mitigate them. So just as a stock take for people who've just joined us. So, and Pule asked the question, what's the next step, or where, how will this Firearms Control Act amendment carry on? This proposed amendment, well, firstly, it needs to go after the public participation process. They either have to withdraw it or go work on it, or if they're very stupid, push ahead with it. Either way, our options are to resist, litigate, and if all else fails, civilly disobey in order to prove the point.
I think that's an advanced stage of it. I think let's take it back for the benefit of people who are watching.
Yeah.
We spoke about the DA. We spoke about Freedom Fund. We spoke about the ANC. Right? We're in a democratic country. Hold your leadership accountable. There's smaller parties. Even the new kids on the block have have taken a stand with us. What are they called? Action. What is it?
Action SA. Herman Mashaba's outfit. Yeah.
Yes. Some of these people are independent candidates. That's the word, right?
Yeah.
Attend your BGM. Attend all of those things that matter. Speak to your churches. I've sent you videos of at least 2 or 3 pastors that have encouraged their people to get licensed firearms.
Yes.
I speak to people in my branch and my old detachment to say, guys, this is not right. And I haven't met one, by the way, that has said, oh no, let's turn them in. A lot of these guys, when you say, when I say to them, guys, they've started with the amnesty again. So, oh, okay. So the thugs down the road are gonna go and buy these guns. It's because we see this happen. All right, it happens in front of us. Right? Hence, I even said to you, I'd like to see the first cop with all the training that they do not get. I'd like to see the first cop that's going to step into my house and ask for my firearm and say, I'm taking your property because there's a law that says. Because I can tell you now, Chana, that's not happening.
And that's, I think you multiply those sentiments over 3 million people, of which maybe only 5% say, fuck you, no. That's still a big enough 5% to change the course of this country and change the course of history. And my biggest concern with this whole thing is that they've been playing, our opposition has been playing dishonestly. When they couldn't beat us on facts, they started inventing facts that they fortunately very stupidly didn't substantiate. So you can poke holes in it.
What do you mean?
Well, it'll be, I presume it's the anti-gun lobby, or the politicians who are in favor of this. It's the journalists who are in favor of this.
I don't call them opposition. They don't qualify to be called opposition. The DA is opposition. They've got some decent numbers. The EFF is opposition. They've got good numbers. Right? AK and her 6 people in a non-existent backroom office. I don't call those people opposition. They're not opposition. For me, that does not qualify as opposition. That's like you saying you're going to send a sector van to come pick up my firearms. It's not happening. That's not opposition. They're not strong enough to face me alone.
Well, that's the fact. I wish I'm just going to buy you whiskey, Themba, because that's okay. So those anti-gun fanatics, those anti-gun extremists who cannot beat us in rhyme and reason, then they tried with their pet journalists to put me into a corner and say, oh, but this issue is split along racial lines, and I said, no, it isn't. And the more you say to them, no, it isn't, they go, oh, but prove it. It's like, well, hang on a second. You claimed it was split along racial lines. How about you fucking prove it? Like, I don't have the numbers. I don't know how many black gun owners there are in this country. I'm under the impression from academic inference that it's at least 60%. It might be more.
But they are correct. It is split along racial lines, just not in the way that they think.
Actually,
It is. All right, and I can explain. Just give me 2 minutes to explain why
go.
I'm saying it is.
Please. This is going to be good.
It's split along racial lines because they have old white money telling them that my black self does not need a gun. That's the racial line they're talking about. Because they're sitting,
I can't
they're
argue.
sitting, they're sitting comfortably in a neighborhood with a gated neighborhood, boomed off area. They close off the booms at 6 or 7, and I can't go in there to visit a friend. If I'm in there, I need to leave earlier. This is reminiscent of the olden days, right? Where I would need to be carrying a pass to say, no, I work for Bas Gideon. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
So in that sense, it is split along racial lines. The one thing that there's two things
in the opposite direction
that I know. There's two things that I know that I'm sure of that bring all races together. All right. The first one is people who are smokers. All right, because I can stop in front of the reddest face in town and ask him for a cigarette. He won't ask me for my name. He won't ask me for a pass and a special. He understands the desperation. He will pull out a fag and give me one to smoke. All right, that's number one. Number two, you and I have been friends for so long, solely on one thing and one thing alone, that we agree that should you and I have to go to war tomorrow because of our different races, I want you to at least have a fair fight. So you also want me to have a gun because you've seen what it was like when I was getting kicked without a gun, and I don't want to see you in that position because I already outnumber you.
Fuck, exactly, dude. And this is the strangest. You bring it up, and it's a conversation I just had like a week or two ago with someone. They said, "Oh, okay," but it was like, if I'm stereotyping you in the audience, I kind of apologize. But it's like, why, why am I not afraid of all these black people that have guns because there's so many of us and they want the land and stuff? And I said, you know what, guys, if shit hits the fan, let it be a fucking fair fight. That's all that, if it comes to the point where might is right, then let it be a fair fight. I mean, Saladin gave King Richard the first a fucking horse when King Richard's horse died in battle during the first, I think, was it the first or the second crusade? I can't remember. Well, it was one of the crusades. I mean, here you go, sworn enemies, respected each other on the fucking battlefield enough. And it's that sort of, that's where we sit along the same campfire here is, I believe, all people that are law-abiding should have the right to keep and bear arms. And that's where we're at, dude.
Everyone who's law-abiding and sane. I mean, if you're saying, look, there's nothing, I don't think there's a lot of wrong things about the way we are getting guns, right? Because I have to go through, they take my fingerprints. They know I'm not a criminal.
Yeah.
The stupid thing
is... But the person
is,
taking your fingerprints might be a fucking criminal considering how infiltrated some of the police stations are. So, whoops.
Now, if I'm competent, you've given me a competency, right? For four, I've got a competency for handgun, for shotgun, for manual rifle and self-loading rifle, right? You've said I'm competent. You've checked my fingerprints. It's A-okay. I've bought my first gun. I haven't done shit with it. I'm gonna be renewing soon. I've got my second pistol. Now I'm applying for a third one. I still have to go through the same thing. Exactly. You saw what happened when the portfolio committee visited CFR. There's lots of papers. Now, the biggest buzzword in the political space right now is fourth industrial revolution, and I think for a couple of years it was living green and whatever. Now,
smart cities, Themba. Smart cities and eating bugs. Sorry.
Yeah. When you say to me fourth industrial revolution, I'm thinking IT, super. Why can't I don't want to advertise for any bank, but if there's a bank that's allowing me to apply for my ID. And, you know, a lot of things just by taking a picture and sending it to them, and they're connected to Home Affairs. Why can't I do that with my firearms? Why do I need to go over and over and over pieces of paper which pile up? Where's all the paper going to end up? Are we saying we care about the what is it, the ecosystem, when we're still sitting on piles and piles of paper over something that I should be able to log onto my phone via biometrics and have it done? Because you know already who I am, and you know I haven't committed a crime, and you know I'm not crazy, I'm not cuckoos. I have none of my ex can come up and say, oh, he abused me. No neighbor has complained about me being reckless. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So it's stupid.
No, and look, we're getting a lot of comments of people saying we need to do this more often, Themba. So if you're available next week, let me know. I think this is a very good discussion in the run up to, because this process, and thanks Ndemiso for a really cool comment. I really like this thing that you also understand it's a necessity. By the way, before I put Themba on the spot to have him on more often, that whole thing with Tsele is saying it's a privilege, not a right. That's purely based on an obiter remark by the one judge in the one case. I forgot which one, but that remark is the guy's personal opinion. It holds as much water as Themba and I saying the same thing next to a braai fire. It's not relevant in any way, shape, or form. Definitely not for making policy. But Themba, when this thing ends on the 4th of July, that's when it really just begins. And I think we need to keep up this momentum, and these are good conversations to have. Would you be open to more of them?
Yeah, definitely. Because I'm keeping my guns. I don't care even if they go to court and win it. Because, I mean, I've seen politicians. When Paul and I went to meet with the portfolio committee, we had a small victory, very short-lived. All right. And I remember I was asked to step outside in the corridor by the late comrade Jackie. And she asked, but why do you want us to go with what these white people are saying? And I realized that these people still don't realize that this has nothing to do with black or white. I'm there for my guns. I don't care. I mean, a lot of people say, but Paul has vested interest. He's an arms dealer. I'm not an arms dealer. A lot of people will say, but Martin is a lawyer, he can pay for it. Fine, he's got to put food on his table. I'm not interested in their business, right? But I'm interested in keeping my firearm, and I'd be happy if you get the same, right? Because I don't want to say I live in or I sacrifice a lot of my childhood and youth in a country where you don't feel free around me. I want us to be on equal footing, so that if you piss me off and we have to have a gun duel, it's good.
Yeah, and we do it properly, no fucking around, no beating around the bush. And that's the thing. It's a case of what's happening here is a synergy of individual self-interest. You are there because you want to keep your guns. And every single person who goes out there, and I'm not going to call it selfishly, because there's a difference between being selfish and being self-interested. If I go out there with my own self-interest and you go out there independently with your self-interest, and all we care about is keeping our own guns, together we actually, in a big enough group, we care about everyone keeping their own guns. And
but you know how that helps? Because it moves us away from being clustered and being called, oh, but it's just a certain group or certain organization, right? So people are now looking at us as individuals, as independent people. You're white, I'm blackish, and someone else even blacker than me. So it shows that these are people who don't care about the racial divide. These are people who are saying we need to have a law that serves all of us. And if the masses and the majority of us are saying we want our guns, let us keep our guns.
Exactly.
If I commit crimes with my gun, then you do what you're supposed to do. There's laws that are there for that. All right, you know what to do. If whether I'm black or white, it doesn't matter. The law doesn't say, okay, for white people we're gonna do this, for black people we're gonna do that. It says if someone is this, we're gonna do that. Simple.
Exactly, and this is the thing. Okay, people often say, but if they come to confiscate your guns, why would you give your life to keep them? And I say, as a bit of an amateur student of history, I think we all know what happens after your guns get confiscated. Okay, it's not a case of you're delaying the inevitable. You get perhaps there a choice to either fight and die with some dignity, or you will just die in a re-education camp or a concentration camp, depending upon the nature of the totalitarian regime. It's still the same thing. They just call it different things. And whether or not you're being oppressed or assaulted by a white or black police officer or politician, the end result is you still have a boot in your throat that you'd prefer not to have there. And it's not about the guns. It's about independence. It's about freedom. And yeah.
I mean, it's the guns first. What next?
That's it.
You see, so just based on that alone, I don't need to justify why I want to keep my guns. I keep them because I can afford them, and I like shooting them.
Exactly.
I don't need to explain to anyone further. I mean, why does someone in politics who claims to represent the poor, why do they prefer Louis Vuitton over a local brand? It's they can afford that. Okay, they make money somehow that affords them that. Now, if I can afford all 29 of my clocks, it's mine. If I'm not committing crime with them, if I'm not getting them illegally, let me be. Just walk away.
And that's exactly as Chris says. We need a South African flavor of "Don't tread on me," which I think is footsec. And that's exactly like footsec. Leave me alone. Leave my guns alone. It's none of your business. I mean, we have a huge thing, Themba. No one will ask you how many cars you own, or why you own so many cars, or why you own so many pairs of.
Why I never tell them right.
Exactly. It's, or ask you for, well, I suppose medical information is not private anymore because everyone wants to know your vaccination certificate, but it's none of their fucking business. And this is the part that really gets me is it's not just about the gun, it's also about my private life as an individual.
Yeah. I mean, if we're saying you and I are decent enough to say, look, if people want to pick their sexual orientation and be free amongst us, that's that. Okay, my sexual orientation is gun sexual. I love my guns, so can I just happily identify as a gun sexual idiot? I'm fine, I'm not doing anything wrong.
No, that's it, and it's legitimate. All these uses are legitimate. This is it's almost that American retardation of, with why do you need an AR-15? It's like because I feel like having one. That's my need, and I also think just on the airs we've got like 7 minutes left. If you've got questions for Themba, bring it. But he's definitely coming back for more. But we've got an awakening among people who are legally arming themselves. I mean, just in our retailer alone. And I mean, the Western Cape is not, from a racial perspective, you don't get many Xhosa men walk into your store and say, hey, listen, I'd like to buy a gun for self-defense. Now that's happening. And they're bringing their wives and their girlfriends because they understand they can and they feel empowered to do it. And that's a big change.
Yeah, if there's any questions, I mean, guys are welcome to throw them. I need to move a bit for my battery. We've got more minutes than I've got battery life.
Oh, sure, but yeah, okay, we've got 6 minutes left, and then, but uh, on that note, I'm not going to let you stand there uncomfortably. So Andre asks, okay, no, Andre is telling us Tele thinks he's God, which I agree. He does seem to think. There we go. Call me a God. Yeah, I think we should put that in the flag.
That's right. Yeah, that sounds right.
Cool, but Themba, before you put your neck and your back out, I'm going to try and get you back next week if you've got time. Renier asks, when you're running for president, what would you put as a final thought after our very cool discussion? This was a lot of fun, by the way.
Renier, I don't like running much. That's why I own guns. Hate running. I've ran enough. I had Unit 21 on my ass chasing me throughout my youth, so I'm done.
You're done running.
Yeah, I'm done running. I don't run. That's why I'm saying they must come. I mean, they've got my address. Every time I change an address, if I might still move to another house, I'll give them my address. I'll let them know where I am, so they can come try me. It's fine. What do I think of this conversation? I think we need to have more, and I think we need to stop being reactionary and just keep this momentum going. Even I don't care what the outcome of this discussion in Parliament or if we go to court is. I just think we need to keep having this conversation so that the fire doesn't die down.
Yeah, that's the thing. And Avan actually pushes through. Is like, do you think it would be possible to make the push through for license a person register the forum successfully with the upcoming battle? That is indeed the plan. There are legal, from DRSA's side, we're formulating an actual bill by our legal team to present this as a solution. So not just the concept and the executive summary of it, which I will publish soon. Rob just sent it through to me this afternoon, but to actually already present them with a bill and say, this can be done. This is how the legislation looks. So...
yeah, I'm happy. We can do that anytime. But Themba, can we bring this conversation to the township? Many people don't really understand the implications of this amendment. Well, depends on what township you're in. You've got leadership, you've got the structures. I said that earlier. Attend the BGMs, attend the general meetings within the community, and raise it up. I do that.
No, that's it. It starts with, and this is not a criticism of anybody. Lots of people ask me, okay, cool, but when are we organizing a protest in their town? I'm like, dude, that's you. You asked the question, you stuck your hand up, you organize it. I will help you. I'll be able to assist you in the application process with pointers and stuff. But what we need to do is if you ask it, you have to own it, because I'm not special. I'm just an idiot with a microphone and a YouTube channel. And the only reason I have a microphone and a YouTube channel, a small one, but I appreciate the people watching immensely, is because I'm just here doing it. It's going to cost you time and some blood, sweat, and tears, but that's it. We need you guys at the bottom, because you're the most important players in this, not me. I can talk, I can inspire, but I can't do what you can do. You guys need to do the thing I can't do.
And if someone is gonna ambush you at an interview and say you're doing this because Gideon has put you in front, then we lose the whole thing. So if you're Stelo Dlamini and you wanna have a word with your leadership, you do that directly. You don't need Gideon to assist you with that.
And Avan, you may certainly, I'll look out for you. I've got a very sort of like curated profile, but that's all good. And that's it, Themba. We let's keep on pushing this. I know a lot of people feel that the ANC is going to push us through anyway. I don't think that's how it works. Maybe last thing for the last 30 seconds, I feel this is going to I think we can win.
I don't think Ramaphosa wants to go down as the president that lost the ANC all the voters that weren't happy with that. I don't think that's going to happen.
But it really is up to us to keep the pressure on.
Certainly. And let's do it.
Pule, please swing past the store. Like, Pule's been past a lot of times. I need to talk to you about getting you your competency done, young man. Well, he's not. I mean, I'm not that old, but he's a bit younger than me, so we need to get him sorted. Ladies, gentlemen, others, thank you for watching. Themba, thank you for spending time with us all this afternoon or this evening. It's been a great discussion. We'll follow this up next week. We'll just arrange a time and a day. And we shall see you all shortly. Have a good night and a good evening, and